everyone, welcome back to my channel if you are a returning subscriber, or welcome if you are new. My name is Ellie and I recently completed Disney's Cultural Representative Program. It's basically a program where you get to live and work in America for a year. You also get to work in Walt Disney World in Epcot in the United Kingdom Pavilion. So it's a pretty exciting gig. I basically completed the program back last year in 2019 and I had a lot of people message me asking lots of questions, asking me to do videos. So this is part of my Disney CRP series where I'll be answering all of your questions about the application process, etc, etc. So this is probably about episode, I want to say five or six, but it's basically going to be about the questions in the Yummy Jobs application process. Obviously, if you are not from the United Kingdom, I would disregard this video completely because they do it a little bit differently. I obviously did not apply outside of the UK, so I don't know what they will ask you in the application, unfortunately. But in the UK, you have to apply through a partner company called Yummy Jobs, and they ask you to submit some answers to questions. So I mentioned a few videos ago that I had a folder that I kept everything in, so I knew where everything was together. I actually still have said folder with everything in. Nice little picture of me. Everything in. As you can see, there's a big wad of paper in there, and I would basically print everything out and kept annotating it, giving it to other people to read, and it's such a good way to have everything together. I've literally, I think I got this from Cath Kitson, but you can buy them really cheap from Tesco's, WH Smith. I labeled it CRP with my label maker just because I'm a loser. But yeah, you don't have to do this, but it's really good for me now because I can look back and show you guys everything. So I actually have two pieces of paper that are about the questions. Obviously, I last applied, it would have been 2017. It's now 2020, so it's nearly 3 years later. So perhaps the questions might have changed. I honestly am not sure, but I can only give you a reflection of what I applied with and what sort of things I think that you should be putting in your application. Obviously, I'm not going to sit here and read these out to you because this is what I think the answers to the questions are. I do think it should be personal. I do think it should be what you think. If I tell you to do something, like, there's no point like 50 of you being like, I'm gonna write what Ellie wrote, because then everybody would be the same and then it wouldn't be about you. So I feel like I'm just gonna be giving general advice, but I do think it should be what you want to say and what is important to you. First question that I had is, what is your motivation for the program? And I've written here that it's 1,500 characters max. Now 1,500 sounds like a lot, but when you're writing your literal heart out about why you want this to be your dream job, then it really is not a lot. So you have to be clear, you have to be concise, you have to do mind maps, you have to do plans, you need to work out what you're going to say before you even write this up. I must have redrafted this like 100 times. I would spend hours on it nearly every single day until I honestly thought it was perfect, and then I'd read it the next day and be like, Ellie, what were you thinking? I'd also save every single copy differently, so it'd be like motivation 1, motivation 2, like all different documents, so then you can look back, because you might take stuff out and then be like, actually what I wrote a few days ago, I want that back in. So when you're writing your paragraph for motivation, I would use keywords such as like dream, passion, culture, heritage, all those things. I would work out what you think the keywords are. Obviously, it's a cultural representative program, so culture is going to be a massive word. Disney is also going to be a keyword. I'd pretty much have your own list of like taboo words, apart from taboo is words you can't use, whereas it's going to be words that you're definitely going to use. So like keywords, work out what words are important to you that you can keep referring back to. I would make it very clear that you are proud of your heritage and that you are proud of where you come from. I know obviously we aren't all proud to live in the UK at all times, but for this situation you need to make it very clear that you are proud to come from England, UK, wherever abouts you are from in the UK. You are going on a cultural representative program. It may be working at Disney World, but the title isn't Walt Disney World employee, it's cultural representative. So regardless of where it is, that is what the job role is, that's what the title is, so you need to keep referring back to what makes culture important to you. For me, I studied a lot of arts and history and literature when I was at school, and that was really important to me growing up and still is important to me now, so I reference that a lot. I reference a lot of like bands like the Beatles, I reference a lot of like Shakespeare, plays. And those are all things that are important to me, and if they ask me about it, I could talk for days about. Something I always say is, don't put things in that you don't understand, because you could use thesaurus.com, put in fantastic words, and then they ask you about it and your vocabulary is nothing like the words that you've put down on paper. Obviously, I said it is about culture and that is super important, but I would have maybe 10% as Disney things. So what is Disney's brand ethic? What is the CRP about? What does Disney want from you? These are all questions that you should be asking yourself. What is the job role? What can you bring to the role? What can you take away from the role after the program if you are successful? It's asking about your motivation. So why do you want to go live in Disney World? Why do you want to go and represent the UK? What are you proud of from the UK that you can take with you to represent? I know it's obviously a lot of people's dreams to go work in Epcot. It's definitely been one of mine, but what is your motivation for that? Why do you want to do that? And that's something you really need to think about as an individual. Why is this my dream? Is it so you can post on Instagram all the time, or is it so you can share your culture with millions of guests visiting you from all over the world and make every single interaction a special moment? So obviously a huge part is sharing your culture with guests, so that a huge part of that is sharing stories from back home. So even if you can get like a little bit of story into your question is important. Storytelling is such a huge thing for the Disney brand, so you can tell a little bit of story in there, whether it's about drinking tea or having fish and chips every Friday. You have fish and chips Friday with your grandma or whatever. Silly things like that. They're going to make it special and specific to you as an individual. I just really think it is important to keep looking back at your questions, getting people to read them, print them out. Do not give up. If this is something that is really important to you, keep referring back to them. Ask people for feedback. I know it's difficult, and I know if you get rejected it's even more difficult, but you just got to keep persevering on. If you've got that drive and that magic inside of you, then you can definitely get through it. The second question is, why do I value cultural exchange and why do I value cultural exchange and interaction? Now, that question definitely gives me a lot more than the motivation one, because it's given you two words, so cultural exchange and interaction. So that could mean anything. To me, it could mean going to work and working in the parks and meeting people from all around the world that have traveled to Walt Disney World to experience things such as Epcot. The whole premise of Epcot is that it's the World Showcase. You can travel around the world in one day. So there is people out there who can't possibly afford to see all of the world. I know a lot of Americans don't really travel outside of the US, so if they go to Epcot, well, they don't have to leave the US, they can go to France, they can go to Italy, they can go to China. So I really think it could mean that, like sharing it with other people who have traveled to Florida, but also it could relate to you living with people from all over the world. So I had a Norwegian roommate, I had a German roommate, Chinese. So that is cultural exchange and interaction, because you have to live with all these other people and interact with them on the daily basis, and they're from all over the world as well. So I definitely feel like you should look at the question and think, what does this mean to me? What do they want to see, and what do I want to say? So like I said, keywords are going to be super important. Culture is going to be something that you really want to talk about in this question. I'm going to be honest, I probably would barely even mention Disney in this question. If you want to talk about Disney, I would put it in the other question, because they're not asking about Disney in this. This really is because they want to know about your culture and what you would bring to the pavilion. Think about what's important to you. I can see here, without giving too much away, that I wrote about things that made me proud to be English, like I talked about earlier, the arts and the extensive history, As the United Kingdom, we do have a fantastic extensive history which a lot of other countries do not have. Like we have the Victorians, the Tudors, and that dates back thousands of years ago, whereas the US only have a couple of 100 years of history. And obviously I studied history at A-level, so that was something that I'm pretty passionate about, so that's something that I was referring back to. I've also talked about traveling. I've been very fortunate to do a lot of traveling in the years that I have been growing up, when I was on my program I was able to do a lot more traveling, so I definitely used that as not an excuse, but I used that as a point as well. I would pretty much then link those points with what you would do with them on the program. So would you make friends? Would you learn about new histories, learn about new countries, new traditions, and how you would link your own traditions and history with other countries' traditions? I'm an absolute avid learner. I love learning new things, and when I did the program I was able to grow so much and learn so many different things, whether it was about culture, history, cultural exchange and interaction, or even just being an adult and growing up and how I have to deal with living with other people and going to work full time and balancing all of these things. And that is something as well that you might want to learn and you might want to grow. And I honestly think with the questions it's so difficult to give advice, because I could sit here and read my thing off, I could post this on the internet and you guys could just copy the whole thing, but I don't think you should. Obviously that would be like plagiarism because it's my words, but also I think it should be really specific to you, because they're looking for individual personalities, that you can bring something to the pavilion, to the World Showcase that nobody has brought before. Obviously, like I said, I applied, the last time I applied was 2017, but the first time I applied must have been 2016, and I have heard about a different question as well. So if you guys have other questions and want to put them in the comments below or message me on Instagram, I can try and give some advice on that. But the advice I have given is general advice. Just make sure you read the question, think about what they're asking, what you want to give to the program. It's all general advice, so it doesn't matter if it's specific to the question or not. But yeah, that pretty much concludes this video. If you have any other questions, anything you want me to talk about, please don't hesitate to message me on Instagram or comment below. Subscribe, like, comment, all those good things. Follow me on Instagram, it's just going to be at Ellie Brown. I'll make sure I'll put that down there. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week.